Welcome, listeners. I'm Silas, your sleepy storyteller, pulling you down the rabbit hole of time, where dreams and memories intertwine. If you enjoy these videos, please tap the like button. It really helps. Also, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can keep drifting along on your sleepy journey through history. And before we wander down the rabbit hole, share your city and time in the comments. I love imagining our journey threading through every ticking clock. Now, take a moment to find a comfortable resting position. Close your eyes gently, and in your own time, allow yourself to sink into the quiet atmosphere of the past as we begin our slow journey together. The subway is still young, still raw, still smelling faintly of iron and damp stone. Tonight, it feels like a vein of progress, pumping people into the heart of Manhattan on this most unusual night. The eve of a new year, 1907, giving way to 1908. I step from the train car, my boots striking the tiled floor of the station, and am immediately caught up in the rush of fellow passengers. The new underground system is a marvel in itself. It hums with energy, its electric lamps throwing steady yellow pools of light along the vaulted ceilings. Men in stiff collars and bowler hats stride quickly, their overcoats brushing the polished tile. Women in long woolen dresses and fur shawls keep close to one another, gloved hands clutching parcels tied with twine. Even here underground, steam from breath rises into the chill, curling and vanishing against the cold stone arches. The air is tinged with coal smoke carried in from above, mingling with the metallic scent of rails and the faint ozone of electricity. A smell that belongs to a new century. Only a few years ago, to imagine crossing the city beneath its own streets would have seemed an absurd dream. Now it is real, and it delivers its passengers not into some shadowy cavern, but into a crossroads already claiming the title, center of the world. I ascend the stairwell, the air growing colder with each step upward. My hand skims the iron railing, slick with condensation from boots and gloves that have passed before me. At the top, I push through the heavy doors, and the city strikes. The wind is sharp, snapping against my face, dragging coal dust and frost into my lungs. Steam gushes from grates in the pavement, twisting upward like incense into the night. And beyond it all, Times Square spreads out before me, not the garish blaze of neon that later generations will know, but something rougher, rawer, and in its own way more astonishing. Broadway intersects here with 7th Avenue, and 42nd Street runs east to west, cutting the city like a scar. The ground is slick with frost. Carriage wheels crunch against it, horses snort, breath billowing in clouds as drivers pull up to let out passengers bound for nearby restaurants or hotels. Their lamps glow dull yellow, far dimmer than what one day will cover these blocks, but in the dark they shimmer like a constellation pulled low to the ground. Above it all towers the new Times building, still gleaming from its completion only a few years ago. Its limestone facade rises high and narrow, claiming the center of the square with confident authority. It has already renamed this place. What was once Longacre Square, a district of horse stables and carriage shops, is now Times Square, baptized by the ambition of Adolph Oakes and his newspaper empire. It is both symbol and stage for what is to come. The bells of a nearby church toll the hour, their sound carrying through the crisp air. The notes mingle with the distant clatter of carriage wheels, the calls of vendors hawking roasted chestnuts, and the hiss of steam from the grates. The fog thickens in patches, rolling low along the street, catching the yellow lamplight and making it glow like halos adrift in smoke. The crowds here are not yet the crushing sea of bodies that will one day define New Year's Eve. Tonight, they are smaller, scattered, but no less expectant. Families stand bundled together, children pointing toward the Times building with mittened hands. Couples stroll arm in arm, their laughter muffled by scarves. A few adventurous souls already wear the novelty of the season. Black top hats with tiny bulbs spelling out 1908, glowing faintly in the haze like private beacons of optimism. I pause on the corner, taking it in. This is not yet the Times Square of neon and global broadcast. It is rougher, sootier, its edges still showing. And yet, there is something here. Something in the way the air hums with anticipation, in the way the crowd glances upward toward that tower where the first ball will fall. The future is here, not in a grand blaze, but in the flicker of light bulbs strung into a wooden sphere waiting above. I walk along Broadway, boots tapping against the cobbles, passing beneath the lamps strung from their iron poles. Their glass panes are fogged, their flames fighting the cold, but together they throw just enough light to make the frost on the pavement glisten. The coal smoke is thicker here, rolling in from countless chimneys and stoves, carrying with it the smell of soot and industry. It clings to coats, to hair, to the very skin, a reminder that this city runs on fire and smoke as much as it does ambition. Carriages rattle past, their wheels striking sparks against the stones. Inside, I glimpse figures bundled in fur, their faces half hidden, but glowing with candlelight from within. The driver's shouts and the whip's crack echo briefly before being swallowed by the fog. A few automobiles pass as well, still rare, their engines sputtering, their lamps casting sharp beams that cut the haze. Old and new share the street, just as this square itself straddles Eris. Ahead, 42nd Street stretches east, its storefronts lit with warm lamps and decorated for the holiday. Shop windows glow with displays of oranges, nuts, ribbons, and small toys. Children press their noses against the glass, eyes wide. Their parents pull them along quickly, parcels clutched tight, the cold urging them homeward. But the air is alive with promise, of feasts waiting on tables, of Yule logs burning in hearths, of a year about to turn. And above it all, the tower looms, silent for now, but waiting to drop its iron and wood sphere into history, waiting to transform this crossroads into a legend. I stop at the corner, looking up through the fog. The lamps blur, the frost glitters, the crowd murmurs, the bells toll again. Times Square breathes around me, not yet the blazing neon of the modern age, but already something more than a mere intersection. It is becoming. And I, walking slowly beneath its lamps and carriages, can feel the weight of what is about to begin. Broadway bends northward like a glowing vein, its gas lamps flickering against the damp fog. The cold bites harder here, pushing every breath from lips in visible clouds. My boots strike against the stones with a hollow echo, a steady drumbeat that blends with the clatter of carriage wheels and the faint hiss of steam rising from vents in the ground. This stretch of Broadway, only a few years ago still called Longacre Square, feels caught between its past of stables and its future as the city's stage. You can still see the bones of the old trade here, carriage houses lingering at the margins, the faint smell of hay and horse lingering despite the press of coal smoke. Yet already, the shape of something new is rising. Theaters, restaurants, hotels, the kind of establishments that make an intersection into a gathering place. I pass one of the smaller theaters first, its marquee modest but glowing against the fog. Gas jets hiss in iron sconces, casting halos of amber light on the crowd gathered near its doors. The posters pasted to its walls boast of melodramas and musical comedies, the kind of spectacles designed to whisk a weary public into another world. Patrons in long coats and fur muffs shuffle into the lobby, brushing snow from their shoulders. Their laughter cuts through the cold, the sound of holiday cheer pressed between the notes of anticipation for what is to come at midnight. Across the street, a restaurant has thrown open its doors to welcome in the revelers. Through the glass, I glimpse waiters in stiff white aprons, carrying trays laden with bowls of steaming soup and plates piled with oysters. The windows are fogged with warmth, every surface decorated with evergreen boughs and scarlet ribbons. On the tables, diners sport a novelty that has already become the talk of the night. Black top hats lit with tiny electric bulbs that spell out 1908. The little lights twinkle with every tilt of a head, reflections bouncing off polished mirrors. Outside, a boy hawks them from a crate, calling, "Lighted hats for the new year." A shining start for 1908. His voice cracks in the cold, his hands bare as he fumbles for coins, but his grin is wide. Horse-drawn carriages cluster along the curb, their drivers hunched against the wind. The horses stamp and snort, clouds of breath curling upward, their tack jingling faintly like sleigh bells. More than once, I hear the thrum of a motor car sputtering past, engines coughing as they push through the crowd. They are still rare, still novelties themselves, but their presence hints at how quickly this city shifts beneath its own feet. The crowd swells subtly as I press further along. Not the shoulder-to-shoulder press of later years, but enough to thicken the air with anticipation. Conversations hum in low tones, voices carrying in accents from across the Atlantic, from uptown parlors and downtown workshops alike. People from every walk of life are here, bankers in stiff collars, shopgirls with shawls wrapped tightly, children tugging at gloved hands, soldiers on leave with their caps tucked low against the frost. They've all come to see this new invention, this ball that will fall to mark the year. Above it all, rising like a sentinel at the center of the square, the Times Tower dominates the view. Its limestone facade is sharp, its edges catching the glow of the lamps like a beacon. Narrow and tall, it cuts the night sky, a declaration of permanence. Only 3 years old, yet already it has stamped its name upon the crossroads. What was once Longacre Square is now Times Square, baptized in print and ambition by Adolph Oakes, the publisher whose vision turned this corner of the city into a symbol. I pause to take in the details, the flagpole rising from the top, silhouetted against the low-hanging fog. From it, in only hours, the great iron and wood ball will descend, 5 feet wide, studded with 100 incandescent bulbs. It will blaze against the darkness like a captured star. Tonight will be its first journey, its first plunge through midnight, its first gift of light to the city gathered below. But the tower's history is already layered. Only a few years earlier, Ox had lured the city's gaze here with fireworks launched from its roof, blinding bursts of color raining sparks down onto the crowds. The ash and embers had showered over hats and coats, singeing cloth, scaring children. By 1907, the city had banned them outright. The celebration could not end, though. This crossroads was too potent, too hungry to be ordinary. So Oakes found another way. He borrowed from maritime tradition, from the time balls dropped at naval observatories to mark the hour, and transformed it into something theatrical. A ritual for the city, a spectacle that was safe but no less wondrous. The ball now waits above, hidden in the mist, its bulbs cold for the moment. But its promise burns in every eye that turns toward the tower. The square itself hums with contrasts. On one side, a fine hotel throws open its parlor windows, the sound of a string quartet faintly audible. Guests lean out, holding glasses of champagne, their laughter gilded. On the other, a group of newsboys huddle around a small brazier, their thin coats no match for the night. They sell papers printed with holiday sermons and the promise of the event, a new year, a new era in Times Square. The ink still smears under their fingers, the print damp from the presses along Fleet Street. The smell of coal smoke presses heavy, mingling with roasting chestnuts from a street cart, their shells crackling as steam rises into the cold. The vendor turns them in his pan, calling out prices to passers-by, his voice hoarse from the night. Beside him, another sells roasted potatoes wrapped in paper, the warmth carried in small parcels to cold hands. It is food for the street, survival wrapped in simplicity. Yet somehow, it feels festive too. The fog thickens as I move closer to the base of the tower. Gas lamps fight against it, halos bending, light fading at the edges. The crowd thickens too. You can feel the energy building. Not yet feverish, but steady, like a kettle beginning to boil. Faces are turned upward more often now, glances cast toward the roofline where nothing yet moves. The idea of it is enough. The idea that something unseen will mark the moment, that light itself will descend and carry the old year away. The Times Tower is not just a building tonight, it is an altar. Around it gathers the city's hope, its exhaustion, its restless hunger for a new beginning. The limestone is pale against the soot-dark sky, the flagpole cutting upward like a needle through the mist. I stand among the crowd, my breath clouding, my hands cold, my eyes following theirs to that single point where tomorrow waits to be born. This is Times Square in its infancy, raw, imperfect, half-built, but already claiming its destiny. Fireworks are gone. Ash is banished. But something greater has taken their place. A ritual of light, a ritual of time, a ritual that will outlive every carriage and every coal lamp, every brick and every name. And it begins here, at the foot of this tower, in a square renamed for ambition, on a night when all of New York leans forward together, waiting for the future to drop from the sky. The square tightens as I move northward, the air thick with coal smoke and the mingled perfumes of food drifting from doorways. The lamps along 43rd Street burn brighter than the gaslight behind me, their flames bobbing inside glass globes that halo against the fog. Here, Times Square shows both its polish and its raw edges, streets alive with fine restaurants and theaters, but also littered with scaffolding and bricks, the bones of a city still under construction. Through the frosted windows of a restaurant, warmth spills outward in sudden bursts whenever the door swings open. Waiters stride quickly between tables, their shirts starched white against black vests, balancing trays laden with champagne flutes that glitter like captured stars. The sharp pop of corks cuts the night, followed by cheers muffled behind thick glass. Inside, the diners gleam with the finery of the era, men in black evening suits, some sporting silk cravats, women in sweeping skirts trimmed with lace, their shoulders draped in fur against the draft that sneaks in whenever someone arrives late. At nearly every table, a novelty crowns the night. Tall, black top hats outfitted with thin wires and tiny bulbs that spell out 1908. The hats glow faintly, powered by small, battery-driven packs hidden beneath the brim. A marvel of electricity, still a luxury, now turned into entertainment. Guests laugh as they tilt their heads to see whose hat shines brightest, the reflections flickering across mirrors and polished brass fixtures. The hats wobble comically when wearers raise their glasses, but that only adds to the spectacle. The laughter and clinking are carried outward each time the door opens, released into the crisp air where it mingles with the voices of the crowd. On the curb, bundled men smoke cigars and trade stories, their cheeks reddened by cold and drink. A group of young women pass by, clutching their cloaks tight, glancing through the glass with half envy, half delight. Their laughter is lighter, freer, as they hurry to a cheaper tavern down the block, their boots striking sparks from the frost-slick cobbles. The smell of roasted chestnuts anchors the street. A vendor crouches by his brazier, turning the nuts with blackened hands, calling prices over the din. Steam rises from the cracked shells, carried on the wind with a sweetness that settles into every passerby's clothes. His cart is surrounded not by the wealthy patrons of the restaurants, but by errand boys, seamstresses, laborers, those who will spend their coins sparingly, for warmth as much as for flavor. The vendor's face glows with firelight, his eyes reflecting the embers, as if he too is kept alive by the heat. Not far from him, another man sells roasted potatoes, wrapped in newspaper, the ink smudging onto hands as people clutch them like treasure. A small boy with patched boots bites into one, steam curling upward, his face briefly lit with joy. The potatoes cost less than oysters, less than champagne, but tonight they are just as much a feast. The streets around the square are alive with contrast. Step into one lane and you find polished facades, strings of evergreens strung above doorways, windows lit with candles and wreaths. Step into the next, and you find scaffolds, bricks stacked in piles, buildings half finished, their frames skeletal in the mist. The smell changes with each turn: coal smoke from boilers, sharp tar from fresh construction, the damp stone scent of new mortar. It is a city mid-breath, still inhaling the future, not yet exhaling the spectacle it will become. Men in work coats linger near the construction sites, watching the celebration unfold just beyond their reach. They lean against stacks of timber, their breath heavy with pipe smoke, their hands stuffed into pockets. The unfinished streets seem to brood, shadows between the lamps, reminders that this crossroads of the world is not yet what it promises. Yet even here, life stirs. A boy runs past, with a stack of broadsheets under his arm, shouting headlines about the coming year, his voice cracking in the cold. Another hawks ballads printed for the holiday, songs about hope and progress, their verses inked cheaply but sold dearly to those who crave words to carry into midnight. Horse-drawn cabs rattle by, their wheels striking sparks from cobblestones, the horses snorting, stamping, manes steaming in the cold. Some carriages carry families bundled together, faces pressed to the glass, children wide-eyed at the lights. Others hold solitary figures, men with collars upturned, heading to private suppers or secret meetings before the new year breaks. A rare motor car sputters past, coughing blue smoke, its driver hunching over the wheel as if embarrassed by the noise. The fashion of the age gives the whole scene its character. Women's skirts sweep low, brushing frost from the stones, the hems already darkened with soot. Shawls and cloaks wrap shoulders, hats pinned firmly against the wind. Men wear bowlers, Homburgs, or the new illuminated top hats, their breath curling upward in thick plumes. Gloves, mufflers, furs, all practical against the bite of December, but also signals of status, wealth, or aspiration. Every detail declares the era. A city poised between the horse and the motor car, between gaslight and electricity, between its old name of Longacre and its new identity as Times Square. Above it all, the Times Tower looms, its limestone facade pale against the black sky, its flagpole barely visible in the mist. Though the ball has not yet begun its descent, people already glance upward as though it might fall at any moment. Their eyes follow the line of the pole. Their conversations pause when they imagine its glow. It is anticipation in its purest form, something promised, not yet seen, already shaping the air. The side streets deepen the contrast. One alley, half lit by a single gas lamp, reveals barrels and crates stacked against a wall, the smell of tar thick in the air. Laborers had been here only hours earlier, their tools abandoned in the rush to celebrate. Another side street bursts with music, a tavern door swinging open to release a wave of fiddle and laughter. A man stumbles out, singing the last line of a carol off key, his hat slipping sideways as his friends pull him back inside. Somewhere beyond, a church bell tolls, the sound carried thin through the fog. It is not yet midnight, but the hours tighten, and every sound seems sharper, more meaningful. The bell, the hiss of steam, the crackle of chestnuts, the clatter of wheels, all gather into a rhythm that seems to say, "Not long now." I stand for a while at the corner, taking it all in, the warmth of the restaurants glowing with their 1908 hats and champagne, the raw scaffolds casting long shadows against the lamps, the chestnut vendor turning his nuts, the boy biting into his potato, the carriage wheels clattering. The air feels stretched, caught between two centuries, the 19th fading, the 20th still being born. And in the middle of it all, the Times Tower waits. The crowd thickens around its base. Conversations turn again and again to the ball that will soon descend. Already, children tug at their parents' hands, asking how it will look, how bright, how long. Already, the square is no longer just a crossroads. It is a stage, a ritual is about to begin, one that will outlive all of them. The push of the crowd brings me farther north, until I find myself standing at Broadway and 44th Street. Here, the night feels different, denser somehow, as though the very air is thick with the weight of anticipation. The limestone bulk of the Times Tower is still visible, a block behind me, its crown hidden in mist, but the energy radiating forward is stronger here. This is not yet the neon blaze it will one day become. Instead, it is a patchwork of lamps, painted boards, coal smoke, and expectation, all pressed together in the winter air. Horse-drawn carriages line the curb in a long, uneven row. Their lanterns glow faintly, small golden orbs against the fog, but their light pales in comparison to the looming presence of the tower behind me. Each horse stamps against the cold, steam puffing from nostrils like engines at rest. Drivers hunch low on their seats, collars pulled up, gloved hands tight on reins. Some wait for wealthy patrons to emerge from nearby restaurants. Others wait in hope, scanning the street for a hand raised from the throng. The carriages themselves tell the story of a city in flux. Some gleam with polished wood and shining brass, the kind that carry gentlemen in velvet collars and women in long, fur-lined coats. The doors of these cabs swing open to reveal satin hems, jeweled brooches catching the gaslight, shoes stepping carefully onto the frosted cobblestones. These passengers walk with the confidence of people accustomed to being observed, their laughter crisp, their breath sweet with champagne. But shoulder to shoulder with them move others, the laborers, the seamstresses, the clerks who save their wages for this single night of spectacle. Their coats are rougher, patched, scarves pulled high against their faces. The shoes on their feet are worn, some wrapped with scraps of cloth to hold out the wet. They huddle in small groups for warmth, watching the wealthier carriages with quiet curiosity, though their eyes turn just as often toward the sky, toward the flagpole hidden in fog where something new is promised. It is this mixture, fur collars brushing threadbare wool, polished boots crunching the same frost as worn soles, that gives the street its texture. No separation holds here. Everyone presses toward the same square, breath mingling in the air, hearts beating in rhythm with the clock drawing toward midnight. The street advertisements are humbler than those of later years. Instead of neon towers and blazing screens, painted wooden boards lean above storefronts, their letters bold but fading, announcing theaters, haberdashers, tobacconists, and restaurants. Gas lamps flare in iron brackets, hissing softly as they fight the damp. Their glow pools against the boards, catching flecks of color. Reds and golds, where paint has not yet weathered away. One sign shows a smiling figure lifting a glass, a painted advertisement for a nearby tavern promising hot mulled ale. Another advertises cigars, the smoke curling elegantly from a gentleman's lips. The boards are simple, their artistry functional, yet in the fog they seem almost spectral, floating images lit from below by wavering flame. Vendors occupy every corner. They hawk newspapers and printed ballads, their cries cutting through the murmur of the crowd. "New celebration in Times Square," one shouts, his voice cracking. Another waves a stack of broadsheets bearing bold letters about the illuminated ball to descend at midnight. The idea is so novel that even the paper sellers seem uncertain how to describe it, stumbling over words, repeating phrases until they settle on what sells best. I pause near one vendor long enough to hear him sing out the headlines of the evening. He speaks of Adolf Ochs, the Times owner who dreamed this spectacle into being after fireworks were banned. He points at the tower behind us, its upper floors hidden in fog, and insists, "Tonight, the city changes. Tonight, you'll see it for yourself." His papers vanish into gloved hands as quickly as he can fold them. Another vendor leans against a painted sign, selling printed ballads. He sings snatches of them in a wavering tenor, his breath frosting with every note. "Ring out the old, ring in the new, a brighter year for me and you." The tune is thin, his voice roughened by cold, but people stop to listen, coins clinking into his cap. The songs are small comforts, yet in their roughness lies something true, a reminder that celebration is as much about survival as spectacle. The advertisements extend beyond boards and voices. Chalked messages appear on walls and sidewalks, scrawled by anonymous hands. "Celebrate the new year here. Welcome 1908. Times Tower. See the ball fall." The words blur in the damp, but the intention is clear. The city itself seems to be reminding its people to look up, to gather, to prepare. The sensory layering of the street is overwhelming. Coal smoke drifts heavy from chimneys, mixing with the sharper tang of horse manure left steaming on the cobbles. Tar from unfinished side streets seeps faintly into the air, mingling with roasted chestnuts, baked potatoes, and the occasional waft of cigar smoke. The smells clash and collide, yet together they form a fragrance uniquely of this moment, urban and rustic, refined and raw. The sounds are no less varied. The wheels of carriages clatter against stone, their iron rims sparking briefly where they strike uneven cobbles. Drivers call to their horses, reins snapping lightly. Bells toll faintly from a church in the distance, marking the half hour, their tones muffled by fog. Closer, voices rise in conversation, laughter, songs. A woman hums Auld Lang Syne under her breath as she walks, her voice just audible above the scrape of her boots. A man nearby whistles My Wild Irish Rose, the tune floating and fading into the night. Children weave through the throngs, some clutching roasted chestnuts in greasy paper, others dragging wooden toys tied with string. Their faces are flushed red from the cold, eyes wide as they watch the horses and hear the vendors' cries. For them, the ball is still an idea, unseen, unimagined, but the crowd's energy seeps into them, and they run, shouting, through gaps between adults, their laughter sparking like firecrackers. I notice again how different this square feels compared to its future self. Tonight, there is no neon canyon, no towering blaze of advertisements turning night into day. Instead, there is something quieter, humbler, but no less powerful. The sense of a city gathering to make something new. The boards and lamps may be dim, but they are lit with intent. The carriages may crowd the street, but they carry all classes alike toward the same moment. Commerce and culture converge here, though without the overwhelming weight of the neon blaze to come. Restaurants glow warm behind fogged glass. Theaters advertise shows with painted boards. Vendors sing out headlines and tunes, and carriages stand ready to carry revelers home. It is rough, imperfect, coal-stained, but alive with a hum that feels historic even before the ball falls. As the crowd shifts and presses forward, I sense the square tightening, the anticipation growing thicker. People glance upward more often now, though the flagpole remains hidden in mist. The hour nears, and every lamp, every carriage, every cry of a vendor feels like a thread woven into the tapestry of anticipation. The air thickens as I press forward into the heart of the square. Behind me, 44th Street stretches into mist and gaslight, its carriages and signs already dissolving into memory. Ahead, the Times Tower dominates everything. Its limestone edges hard against the night sky, its flagpole piercing upward into the fog. This is the building that rebranded an entire district. Just 3 years ago, this was Longacre Square, a place known more for horses and carriage makers than for spectacle. Now, because of Adolph Oakes and his New York Times, the name Times Square rolls off tongues as though it has always been so. Tonight, the tower feels less like a building and more like a promise, something permanent being written into the city's identity. Not long ago, the roof of this building was a stage for fire and thunder. Oakes had used fireworks to christen his new headquarters, sending sparks into the sky and ash into the crowd. But the city tired of hot embers falling on coats, hair, and awnings. By 1907, the ban was complete. No more fireworks. And so necessity birthed invention. In place of rockets and flame, there would be something different, a descent, a ritual, borrowed from maritime tradition. The time ball of the harbor, lowered each noon so sailors could synchronize their watches, was reimagined here, not for sailors, but for revelers. Not at noon, but at midnight. The crowd knows this story. They repeat it in low voices, passing the tale like gossip. The fireworks gone, the ball created. Skeptical eyes glance upward at the flagpole where the object waits unseen in fog. Some scoff, muttering that no sphere of iron and wood could rival the thunder of fireworks. Others grin, delighted to be part of the first experiment. Everyone, it seems, has an opinion, but no one can look away. The streets are not yet the heaving mass of bodies that future years will bring, but they are far from empty. Clusters of people gather in small knots, scarves pulled high, hands clutched in gloves, or bare against mugs of steaming drink. Families linger close, children craning upward, stamping feet against the cold. Young men in stiff collars laugh and jostle one another, while women adjust hats that glitter faintly with novelty lights spelling 1908. Those hats are everywhere tonight, a strange little marvel of their own. Restaurants up and down Broadway have handed them out to favored guests. Top hats fitted with tiny battery-powered bulbs, the numbers glowing faintly in the dark. I see them bobbing through the crowd, blinking weakly but proudly, symbols of a year not yet born. Some hats sputter and fail, the bulbs dimming with each passing hour, but their wearers still hold their heads high, determined to shine even if the light falters. Horse-drawn carriages press along the curb, wheels crunching in frost. Their drivers shout above the din, trying to keep their horses steady as more and more people flood into the square. The animals snort, their breath steaming in clouds, hooves striking sparks against stone. And everywhere, voices rise. Newsboys shout headlines, "Fireworks banned." Time's ball to fall. Vendors hawk roasted chestnuts, their carts glowing with embers. Couples sing snatches of Auld Lang Syne, their voices weaving together until the whole street feels threaded with song. The celebration is not yet cacophony. It is a hum, a vibration, as if the city itself is holding its breath. I step closer to the tower itself. Its limestone skin catches the gaslight in patches, giving it an almost golden hue where soot has not yet blackened the stone. Windows gleam faintly, some dark, others bright with offices still awake. A flagpole juts above, disappearing into the fog, and I know, though the crowd cannot see it clearly, that the ball is there, waiting. The ball itself is new and strange. 5 feet across, iron and wood, 700 pounds heavy, strung with 100 incandescent bulbs. Workers assembled it only days ago, their hands chapped from the cold, their voices muffled by scarves as they hoisted it into place. Now it waits like a hidden star, unseen but ready to fall. I hear the creak of pulleys as workers test the rigging one last time. The sound is small, swallowed by the crowd, but near the tower it carries a groan of rope, a whisper of wood, a click of gears. Men climb the scaffolding with lanterns strapped to their belts, their shadows stretching across the stone facade. They move with care, checking knots, tightening bolts, their breath clouding the air. The crowd murmurs at each sound. A ripple moves through them whenever the rope creaks or the pulley sings. It is the murmur of curiosity, the sound of people witnessing something entirely new. Fireworks they know, rockets they have seen, but a ball that falls? This is invention, ritual in the making, and it carries both doubt and wonder. The air here is layered with scents. Coal smoke rolls from chimneys above, heavy and bitter, clinging to coats and hats. The faint tang of horse manure mixes with it, sharp and unavoidable. Vendors add their share to the fragrance. Roasted potatoes, hot chestnuts, the faint sweetness of sugared nuts. Together, the smells create a perfume of celebration and survival, a scent entirely of its time. Raw, imperfect, unforgettable. Everywhere I look, fashion marks the difference from centuries before and neon years to come. Men wear bowlers and Homburgs, stiff collars pressed against chins, coats buttoned to the throat. Their gloves are leather, polished but cracked. Women glide in long dresses that sweep against the frost, their shoulders draped with shawls or fur wraps, hats adorned with feathers or ribbons. The novelty hats glow above them, awkward but charming, like fireflies captured in silk. Children dart between legs, cheeks flushed, hands sticky from sweets. Some carry paper horns, already blowing them at intervals, sharp bursts of sound cutting through the murmur. One boy wears his father's hat tipped low, his grin wide beneath the brim. A girl clutches a rag doll to her chest, her eyes never leaving the flagpole. Even she seems to understand that something is about to happen. I pause in the middle of the crowd, the tower looming above me, and I feel the weight of the moment. The ban on fireworks could have ended the tradition. Without rockets, without thunder, the celebration might have faded back into private dinners, quiet suppers, churches, and parlors. But instead, necessity demanded something else. Necessity asked, how do you replace fire? How do you replace thunder? And the answer came not in explosions, but in descent. A ball lowered from the heavens, carrying light instead of flame. A ritual that could be repeated, safe, visible, symbolic. Tonight, the first ball waits unseen above us. The pulleys creak, the ropes strain, the workers whisper. The crowd murmurs, glances upward, shifts in anticipation. The city hums like a machine building to release. The moment is almost here. The minutes before midnight gather like frost in the air, sharp, crystalline, and fragile. All around me, the square swells with anticipation. The crowd is not the heaving ocean of bodies it will become in decades to come, but for 1907, it feels immense. Families pressed close, friends wrapped in scarves and overcoats, children drowsy but fighting to keep their eyes fixed upward. The cold bites without mercy, yet no one drifts away. Everyone waits. At 11:50, the whistles begin. From rooftops, from ferry horns on the Hudson and East River, from the throats of boilers that never sleep, steam whistles shriek across the city in unison. They pierce the fog, echoing down Broadway, shivering against the stone of the Times Tower. The sound is both eerie and electrifying. It is not music, but it carries the rhythm of ritual. One whistle, then another, then dozens, until the city itself screams its countdown. A boy in the crowd claps mittened hands to his ears, then laughs nervously. A woman adjusts the feather on her hat as the sound reverberates through her bones. Even the horses shift restlessly, stamping hooves on frost-streaked cobbles. The whistles do not fade. They build, layer upon layer, until the square hums with sound like a massive organ, each pipe shrieking steam into the winter air. And then, just as suddenly, the sound begins to scatter. A pause falls. Silence creeps back, but it is a silence thrumming with expectation. The crowd tilts its collective gaze upward. Above us, though blurred by fog, the ball emerges. At first, it is only a faint glow, an orb suspended in mist, trembling slightly with the movement of its ropes. 5 feet across, wood and iron bound together, it glows with 100 incandescent bulbs. In another time, this would be ordinary, a lamp, a lantern, another triumph of Edison's gift. But tonight, those bulbs shine as if they are stars plucked down from the sky. The orb does not dazzle. It glows, a steady, gentle radiance against the dark. Men mutter approval under their breath. Children gasp openly. A girl near me clutches her father's sleeve and points upward, her voice sharp with awe. There it is! Workers hover near the base of the flagpole, checking ropes and pulleys. The iron groans faintly, mechanical sounds that carry across the hush of the crowd. No one has seen this before, not here, not on this night. The mechanism is not silent. It creaks and clanks as men pull, adjust, and ready the descent. The sound only heightens the tension. It is proof of human hands guiding something that will soon become ritual, proof that tradition is not born flawless, but forged with effort, sweat, and risk. Waiters emerge briefly from hotel doors, their breath white against the night. On their heads gleam the novelty top hats, tall, black, and glowing with tiny bulbs spelling 1908. They laugh with patrons, adjust the little batteries hidden inside, and then disappear again, back into warmth. The sight makes the crowd chuckle. Strange, absurd, charming. The hats are ungainly, some sputtering faintly, but they glow nonetheless. For many, they are a symbol of arrival. A new century, a new city, a new year. Children tug on parents' sleeves, begging for one. Men wave them aloft, showing off the faint flicker of the digits. The glow of the hats reflects the glow of the ball, as if the year itself is beginning to light from every direction. Carriages line the curbs, drivers pulling coats tighter, watching with the same anticipation as their fares. The air is filled with condensation, breath, steam, smoke, all rising like incense toward the waiting orb. The final minute arrives. The crowd collectively inhales, ropes creak, a pulley groans, the ball stirs. Slowly, almost hesitantly, it begins its descent. Cheers erupt, breaking the silence like glass. Hands shoot upward, pointing, waving. Hats are tossed into the air. Couples clutch each other tighter. Children squeal, and the orb lowers inch by inch through fog. The descent is not smooth. It rattles, sways slightly, the iron and wood frame creaking against the strain of ropes. But its imperfection only adds to the wonder. It feels human, mechanical, yes, but guided by the steady hands of workers braced against the pole. Their lanterns bob as they keep pace, watching with hawk eyes as the orb continues its fall. The crowd chants, counting the seconds, though no official countdown has been devised yet. Their voices are uneven, scattered, but together they make a chorus of time itself. 10 seconds, 9, 8. Their words echo against limestone, against gas lamps, against the frozen air. And then, midnight. The ball touches bottom, its light shining full into the crowd. In that instant, the whistles return, shrieking in triumph. Church bells peal from spires across Manhattan, their tolls rolling across rooftops, clashing, colliding, yet somehow harmonizing. The lighted sign at the base of the tower flares. 1908. Numbers 5 feet tall blaze into existence, glowing brighter than any advertisement, brighter than any star in this fog-heavy sky. The crowd roars. Men wave hats. Women embrace. Strangers clasp hands, shaking them as if bound together by the very year itself. A man near me shouts, "God save the new year!" And the words ripple outward. Another sings the first line of Auld Lang Syne, and within moments dozens join. The song is uneven, some too drunk, some too emotional, but its melody rises above the bells, the whistles, the clamor. Carriages roll forward, their wheels crunching over frost. Horses snort and toss their heads, spooked but held steady. Vendors laugh as they hand out the last of their chestnuts. Children cheer until their voices crack. Above all, the ball glows steady, a beacon. What was a novelty only minutes ago is now a tradition. A city has accepted it, embraced it, crowned it with cheers and bells and song. I linger in the square as the roar begins to soften. People disperse in clusters, some seeking warmth, others still lingering, unwilling to let the moment pass. The numbers still glow 1908, bathing the frost in a strange, otherworldly light. The orb above sways gently, its ropes slack now, its work complete. It strikes me that what I have witnessed is more than spectacle. This was necessity transformed into invention, invention transformed into ritual. The ban on fireworks could have ended the celebration. Instead, it gave birth to something greater, something safer, something lasting. The ball itself is humble. Wood, iron, bulbs. It creaks, it sways, it groans. But its meaning is larger than its form. It is a lighthouse in the heart of the city, a glowing sphere that stitches time into ritual. Midnight is no longer just a number on a clock. It is a descent, a fall, a light landing softly into a new year. As I turn to leave, I glance back once more. The numbers blaze. The crowd dwindles. The whistles fade. Coal smoke drifts low over the square, yet above it all, the glow endures, steady and bright, as though promising that every year to come will be marked the same way. With light against darkness, ritual against chaos, community against isolation. And so I step into 1908 with the crowd, my boots crunching frost, the night behind me, but its glow still warming my back. Rest easy, friends. The rabbit hole of time holds many more slow steps. Until we meet again, this is Silas signing off.